Hello, welcome to Boardgame Ninja. Today we are guests at Amsterdam in Amsterdam, where Gideon talks with Sjoerd van der Linde, the designer of Storyfold Wildwoods, published by Open Owl Studios. To start, Sjoerd, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, hi. Very pleased to be here. My name is Sjoerd van der Linde. I'm a designer from the Netherlands. This is a game I designed, which will be published by Open Owl Studios from Canada. It's my first design, and I'm very excited to talk to you about it. And the whole journey of just designing this, even though it is a solo game, has been a dream come true. It has been picked up by an amazing publisher, and now we're already launched on Kickstarter, and it's going well. And so yeah, this is my first game.
The game is often described as a book in a board game. Can you tell me what is the game about?
Yeah, so Storyfold Wildwoods is a narrative solo game, so it is for one player. In this game you will play as a young girl named Luma and a bear companion Brom, and together they set out to heal the forest from a dark and mysterious shadow. The whole game is basically taking place within this what we call the storybook, and it folds out very neatly into two dashboards, and it has everything that you need within the dashboard. And what you'll be doing is by using dice and action cards, and it's quite a strategic game. You'll be progressing the story and traveling through different scenes in order to finish chapters, and multiple chapters finish the whole story. So in total there's 5 chapters, and it will take about 8 to 10 hours to play through. So it's a narrative game with quite a strong strategic element to it that all blends together to give you an immersive story and experience to go through. So every scene that you play through takes about 20 to 30 minutes. And the chapter consists of 2 to 3, sometimes 4 to 5 scenes. So one of the things that we spend a lot of time on is that it should be easy to set up and to tear down. So in the game there is a save system that allows you to save the game after every scene. So you can play 20-30 minutes and pack it away in a couple of minutes, or you can choose to play through, for instance, a chapter which will take you about 1 hour, 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours, depending on the chapter. So it's quite flexible in how you approach the game. Yeah.
And is it a game that you play once and then you know the story and it is ready? You can give it to a friend, or is it something that you destroy on the way? Or
no, it's not. It doesn't have the sort of legacy elements of destroying things. It is a campaign game in the sense that every scene or every chapter has certain endings, and depending on how you play or the choices that you make, you can end up in different scenes, or the stories will branch in different ways.
yeah.
It is very much replayable in the sense that there's quite a lot of random elements. So the way the cards in the river rotate, the creatures that you encounter, the locations that you do, can have different influences on how the story evolves. Having said that, there is an overarching storyline that sort of takes place within certain boundaries, but every scene has different endings. So there's definitely replayability in the way it plays, in the choices that you make, the different endings that it has. And one of the things that we're working on now is also a set of replayability cards so you can play it again with an extra level of complexity that really challenges you even further. But it is a narrative game, so part of the things that you will learn of the story will stay the same. But I'm always very much for, like, if you're done with the game after a couple of plays or 10 plays, then by all means give it to a friend. It sounds very good.
Can you tell us a little bit about how do you play this game?
The core of the game is a rotating card mechanic. So you have 4 action cards that sit between every scene. You activate these cards by different action dice. You can always choose how many dice you spend to activate a card. And every time you play a card, it moves to the end of the river. and the river has different slots, so 3 plus 4 plus 5 plus 6 plus. And depending on where the card in the river is, the chances of gaining successes become higher or lower. So there's a constant flow of choosing how many dice you want and sort of at what level you want to play it. Cards move to the back, and it's a very ebb and flow of playing the game. And with these actions, you have 4 different actions. You have Explore, which allows you to explore different scenes or try to find different boon and bane cards. You have Help, which allows you to ask help from the critters of the wood. You have Light, which allows you to stun creatures or to bring light to the forest. And a very important action is Heal, which allows you to heal the creatures of the forest, because the creatures are not inherently evil, they are just under the influence of evil. So this rotating card mechanic, which some people, I think it has some similarities to Ark Nova, for instance. The difference is that it's cards do not become stronger depending on the river, but the likelihood of succeeding at those cards becomes stronger. And one element that I find very exciting is that different creature cards, they come into your river as well, and they mess up with the different cards in your river, so you have to take care of that as well. And what you'll be doing with these cards and with the river is trying to progress the story through the scene. So every time you win a scene, you move forward in the story, but you can also, if you take too long, the shadow will take over the scene and you will lose that particular scene, and then the story still progresses, but with consequences. Yeah.
And how do you keep every scene interesting? Because there's a mechanic that you walk through them. Is there a lot of progress in scenes?
Yeah, so we have
or twists and turns?
Yeah, for sure. So the game comes with a prologue deck, which is a tutorial deck, which shows you how to play the game without the need for a rule book. And that is a very basic level that you need in order to learn the game. It takes about half an hour. And after that, you go to chapter 1, and chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4, chapter 5. And every scene and every chapter adds more complexity and more puzzles. And there's a lot of design space within, as a designer, there's a lot of design space in the system. The way the creatures work and mess up with your river, the different actions that you can take. At certain points, you can draw cards that add locations to the scene. So there is definitely an increasing layer of complexity, and every scene has its own specific challenge.
Okay. It seems that lately there are lots of games that have a bit of a dark mood, and it looks like this also has some dark understory, or isn't that the case in this one?
It has definitely a dark, melancholic kind of vibe to it. It's ultimately it's a story about a girl and her bear who try to bring light to the forest and to heal the forest from a shadow. But ultimately in this game, love and healing will prevail. It has a dark undertone, for instance, like Isla and Something Shiny or games like that. It is a kind of a fairy tale, you could say, but there's also a much deeper level to it, more which is about facing your own fears and trying to heal the world and yourself in a way where light and healing will prevail. So it's definitely a dark story, but it's hope and love prevail. So there is light at the end of the tunnel.
And what is the relationship between Luma and Brom?
Yeah, so...
Are they one person, or is that something you can't...
I don't even know yet, but... So when I set out the game, I saw the first scene very vividly in my mind. A girl and her bear who set out to go into the forest. The girl, Luma, is actually dedicated to my 2 daughters, Luna and May, and their name together mean light. And Brom is a very loyal old bear who helps her out, who encourages her, who cares for her. He's sort of like a spirit animal, but he plays a secondary role in the story. Who he is in real life, I don't know. Could be me, could be my father. I don't know. But they are definitely together, and when they go into the forest, there will be other companions and creatures that follow them on their journey as well.
In the Dutch language, you have an expression that's a brombeer,
Yeah.
and that means a grumpy bear.
Yeah.
Is he grumpy, or is he more like a teddy bear, like a girl with her teddy bear?
I think he's grumpy in the sense of a dad waking up in the morning having to play with her child, kind of grumpy. So he's. I see him as an old bear who does everything for Luma. He's not grumpy. He's sort of silent, encouraging. But it was mainly a nod to the Dutch heritage and to the cuddly bears of my girls. Brombeer is a Dutch word, and I liked it as a name. So yeah, and as you will see, or maybe you noticed, a lot of the names of the creatures are Dutch or Old Dutch or have a nod to the Dutch language. So I played with this a little bit. And that's all because it's a personal story.
Okay. What do you think that makes Storyfold Wildwoods very special? Why would anybody have to buy this game and play this game?
Yeah, so when I set out to design this, and the work that we've done with Open Owl Studios is, I think it's very much a labor of love. And what we've tried to do is to make sure that everything in the design tries to make your play experience as immersive and meaningful as possible. So I think one of the things that make it stand out is the storybook itself. It's the way it unfolds and the way it holds everything together. There's a lot of flow to the game. We've paid a lot of attention to the way the mechanics, the art, the beautiful art by Justine, and the narratives all come together. I think that's quite special. I think the story, in the sense, it's not a story about slashing through orcs. It's quite a meaningful story. And I think the prologue deck that we created is actually very interesting as well. The way you set it up and you learn it, we wanted it to be accessible and seamless. And that was the design concept.
The girl looks very vulnerable on one side. I mean, she has a big bear that's a powerhouse and she's very vulnerable. But there's not a lot of combat in here, right? While there are a lot of enemies.
Yeah, so the story takes sort of place at two levels. So it's about a girl needing to bring light to the forest. But it's also about a girl having to face her own fears and her own shadows, if you like. So she's not attacking or anything. She needs to bring light to the forest. She needs to heal the creatures. The creatures are not inherently evil. They're just good creatures under the influence of the shadow. Brom is also not killing anyone. Brom is also more supporting. So there is conflict, and there's definitely a lot of pushing back from the shadow in the game. So there is a lot of tension. But the way we've designed it and sort of narratively, it's more about healing and progressing and pushing back and facing your fears than diminishing it and ignoring them or deleting them. Well, on the one hand, she will encounter different, also shadowy creatures, but she's also constantly haunted and hunted by visions and by the shadow itself that give her a lot of emotions. So doubt, fear, sorrow, grief, all of these emotions will come to haunt her, and that she needs to face. So there's this layer of the shadow and the wolves and the emotional things that she needs to go through, and the more sort of mundane level of making your way through scenes and healing the creatures in order to progress the story. Every scene begins with or every chapter begins with a narrative, with art that sets the scene and that progresses the story. And then every scene has a bit of narrative as well. And then as you play through a scene, the choices you make through gameplay will impact the way the story evolves. So it's not a choose your own adventure kind of thing where you get a bit of text and you choose A, B or C. But it's the choices you make through gameplay will allow you to progress the story. So you might say, I want to try to investigate a certain location on the scene, and if you succeed, you might draw a shadow card, a story card. These story cards progress the story. There's art with a bit of narrative, but it also has an effect on the gameplay. So these story cards progress the story through the scene in a sort of a flexible way, and then the scenes and the chapters themselves give a more grounded way in which the story evolves. So every chapter has about 10 to 15 of these story cards, and depending on what you did in the past, you might draw certain story cards and not certain others.
So you won't see the whole deck?
No, definitely not. No.
Can you tell us anything about the artwork and how your very personal Dutch story came together with, I believe, a French artist?
Yeah. So when I designed this as a prototype, I had the vision of the game book and the way it unfolds, and I had a lot of my art was in silhouettes, so black against green. And I chose that art for two reasons. One of them is I was inspired by the shadow puppetry art. So I wanted a game where you don't look from above like a lot of dungeon crawlers, but I wanted to see the scenes before my eyes. And I thought this silhouette art would do a great job. It was also a limitation of my own Photoshop skills, so this I could do. And then Taryn, the art director, and Justine, the artist, they took that concept and just brought depth to it. They made it more dreamlike, and they did a fantastic job to really enhance that concept to what it is today.
What is next? What is next after this?
Yeah, so we are currently on Kickstarter. We're a couple of days in, and it's going really well. So it will be. It is already funded. The game will also come in retail in 8, maybe more languages. So that's next for the next year. The game is pretty much finished. We're playtesting and fine-tuning the last bits. And then, well, as you can see, originally the game was called Wildwoods when I designed it, but now it's called Storyfold Wildwoods. And if the game does well, and it looks like it does, then the idea is that we will create more storyfolds with different stories or different characters, perhaps different emphases on gameplay. So the idea is designed as a book to have a whole set of storyfolds next to each other. So that's the dream, that's the goal. So the Kickstarter ends at the end of December 2024. After that, I think there's always a pledge manager which is open for a while, and there might be some ways to hop in. If you miss all of that, the game will come in retail. I think the aim is now for the end of 2025. And there's several languages, as I said, already lined up. So it will be available for shops.
Okay,
thank you
very much.
Cheers.
Thank you, Sjoerd, for sharing your story. We will be sharing more board game author interviews in the future, so be sure to subscribe so you'll be sure to catch the next one. Bye!